We Love Guitar Nerds welcomes Mr. Greg Platzer, guitarist, band leader, music fixer-upper guy, instrument fixer-upper guy, parachutist, cyclist, believer. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having so few people to interview that I came up on the list.
That is not fair. So what's our story today? How do we meet?
Well, I think you might remember we were parachuting into the Alps working for one of those government 3 letters. And I jumped out first and my chute didn't open. And you flew down and wrapped those strong, loving arms around me and pulled your chute. The 2 of us walked away and here we are.
Yep.
Yeah. Fact check that.
And then we, then we just pummeled the whatever. I don't know.
We fought our way out of Switzerland.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, they're a warlike.
Yep.
Yeah,
They're awfully violent there.
Extremely. Yeah, so much chocolate thrown at me in my life.
Yeah, right. So how did you get started with the whole, like, back to the beginning, your music? Where did it start? Like,
started with the Beatles. I had a friend named Terry. I still have a friend named Paul Terry. And at, I guess, 7, I discovered the Beatles. Paul and I. He bought Sgt. Pepper and I bought Magical Mystery Tour. We just sat there and listened to those albums over and over and over and over. And I ended up with a guitar, I guess 9 or 10, and took a few lessons at the local music store in Gettysburg, where I grew up, a place called Ziegler, and just got into it. And it's funny how, like, I was totally into baseball and then the Beatles and boom, I didn't care about anything but skateboarding and guitars.
That's wonderful. So that they were your gateway musical drug, the Beatles.
Yeah. Beatles were the gateway.
What year are we talking?
Oh, Lord. Well, let's see. 73.
Okay.
71. I was 9 and I was born in 64. You do the math.
Okay.
But
so you're way older than me.
I am.
A little bit. I'm 29.
Okay. I'm
More
70.
Lies. More lies.
Why be believable? That's so boring.
Right. So your gateway drug, musical drug, it was the Beatles. That's.
Yep. And I have an older sister, Carolyn, that would buy stuff, and if she didn't like it, I got it. So she turned me on to Aerosmith. That first Dream On. She didn't
like Aerosmith.
Oh, she didn't like them, and I love them now. She likes them, but Aerosmith just got to me. And then I remember hearing Killer Queen on the radio and becoming a Queen fan. But really, it was Eddie Van Halen that basically opened all the doors in my mind. Jimmy and Van Halen were the 2 guys that I would listen to what they did, and I said, I want to do that.
So you had basic lessons in the beginning.
Yeah.
And what were they? What did they consist of?
Sit still.
Like
Still.
Mel Bay.
Yeah, Mel Bay or no, it was Hal Leonard.
Okay.
And I didn't want to learn like the pokey little puppy tune, and I read music. I just wanted to shred. And I remember, asking, how did Hendrix get this noise? How did he make that noise with a guitar? And
how do you notate it?
Exactly. And my grandfather could play any song on just the black keys on the piano. My mom's a great pianist without being able to read. And I was blessed with that as well. So I suffer from perfect pitch. So when I hear something, I can play it back for you in any key.
Okay.
So essentially, I just wore out records, early Nugent records, ZZ. ZZ Top was great to learn how to play guitar because it was so easy, and you had to learn the spaces as much as the notes.
Yeah. That is what it is. Yeah, it's all about the space in between the
Yeah, because
notes. Yeah. Hmm.
a ladder and a slide is that a ladder has spaces in it.
Yeah.
You know, you
Hmm.
only go one way with a slide. You can go both ways with a ladder.
Yeah, yeah. Never thought about it that way. That's
Well,
yeah. So this
trademark,
trademark.
trademark.
That's mine now. I'm stealing it. Since I saved your life in the Swiss
That's
house.
so name that as your own, sir.
Yeah. Okay. It's a. All right. So you're starting out like 10 years old, 9, 10 years old, and then you're learning songs by ear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then my
That
first
happened
gig,
right away. Huh?
I missed my first gig. It was the talent show at sixth grade camp, but somebody bet me I couldn't jump out of a second story window at Camp Nawakwa, and or no, Camp Robin Hood. We were at Robin Hood because they were fumigating Nawakwa that year, and I jumped out of this building and landed wrong, and boom, missed my gig.
So even back then, at that 6th grade, you were a daredevil.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't tell me I can't, because I'll prove to you that I can.
Yeah. So what is going on with your?
Oh, this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, 6 years ago, I went around a corner on a Harley, and a young lady was coming up the wrong way, looking down, and she looked up at me about right after I looked at her, and I remember the headlights dropping, and I grabbed a little too much front brake, and so the front wheel went out, and I bounced on my shoulder and slid across the road.
Uh-huh.
And when I kind of got my wits about me, I turned and looked, and she had left, and
Yay for
some guy.
humans.
I'm sorry.
Yay for humans.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thankfully, another guy stopped. It was right in front of the guitar store I used to own. And so this guy stopped and he said, "You all right, bro?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I was so pissed off that I grabbed onto the motorcycle like it was a bicycle and just stood it up instead of crawling it up, which is what you're supposed to do with 500 pounds of steel.
Uh-huh.
I it up, and I did some damage, and I was too proud to admit it. And then 6 years of cutting fret slots, polishing frets, sanding, doing what I do.
Repetitive motion.
Repetitive motion, and I just wore out my shoulder. So I have somebody else's rotator cuff in me now. And with my luck, it's going to be somebody that was an axe murderer, and I'm going to start waking up bloody in the morning, having no idea what happened last night.
You're the bionic man.
Yeah. But so I'm recovering, doing physical therapy. My girlfriend Sarah has taken fantastic care of me, and
It's wonderful.
I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's a little setback, losing your arm.
No, you didn't lose it.
Lost use of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was to the point where I couldn't pour water in the coffee machine, and ironically enough, the surgeon, when I went in to review the MRI, I walked in carrying a helmet, and he goes, "You rode here?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Jesus, what kind of pain can you take?" And to me, it just hurt. It just hurt all the time.
Have you met me?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to not hurting.
Yeah.
That's going to be not hurting.
Yeah. Well, this is wonderful.
Looking forward to doing.
Say again?
Oh, I'm looking forward to filling up the coffee machine because I had to use my left.
Yeah. Yep.
Everybody, left-handed coffee isn't anywhere near as good as right-handed coffee.
Right. I can attest to this. So when you first start playing with playing with people in 6th grade?
Yeah, 6th grade, myself, my buddy Todd Tockenbaugh, and Eunice Atterbury. She sang. We practiced "Lean on Me," and unfortunately, I missed the gig due to injury. But that's where it started, and then I did what everybody does, like through junior high. Myself, a fantastic drummer named Chad Jones, who later, he's married to Prairie Prince's daughter. He made something out of himself. He turned me on to Frank Zappa. He and I and a guy named George Scott, we had a band, and we played dances and stuff like that. But it didn't really happen until I was in college. And I was at Penn State, and I was in a band called Mayhem, and we played all over. And that's when I really started getting an idea of what it was really like. And learning discipline,
Mm-hmm.
showing up early because on time is late, early is on time. And I learned how to, I learned how to play inebriated. And
Okay.
then at one, I
You
gave,
learned how to drink in college too, or was
yeah,
that
yeah,
or was that high school?
I took a crash course and,
Yeah.
but at 21, I gave that up. So I've been sober 36 years. And, but I really learned how to be a professional musician in that arena, and then went on to play with various bands and stuff like
Mhm.
that. You know, had fun.
So you went to college for what? What was your thought out of high school?
What do you got?
Yeah.
I, uh, I applied to Penn State and no other colleges. I got straight A's in everything but math and science. Uh, I, I, Mr. Johnson, my math teacher, uh, he gave me a D just to get me out because he didn't want to deal with me for another year.
Uh-huh.
But I got straight A's and everything else. And Penn State took a chance on me, but they put me at Mont Alto, which is a branch campus, which is a forestry campus out in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
And um, soon after I was there, I realized I was going to go on a murderous rampage if I had to stay there for 2 years. So I discovered that if I declared arts and architecture major, then they would have to take me up to main campus.
Okay.
So sophomore year, I was at main campus, and then I changed my major to something else. And I went 3 years, and in those 3 years, I realized that being a student really wasn't me. I pretty much spent all my time playing in bands, working on guitars, and chasing girls and drinking.
Mhm.
And so towards the end of my third year, my buddy Ed had Sundance Kid Hair Salon in Gettysburg. And he said to me, "What are you wasting your time for? Why don't you come work for me and cut hair?" And I thought about that. And I decided, yeah. So I went to barber school, and he hired me halfway through barber school. And so for almost 10 years, I was a hairstylist in Gettysburg.
All right.
The cool thing about that is my clients were potential fans of the band, and fans of the band were potential clients.
Mhm.
And so there was this kind of thing, and I could
And
ride
each
a
other.
motor. Yeah. And I could wear stage clothes all day, and,
Mhm.
didn't have to get a
You
haircut.
look like you look like a freak. You can look like a freak.
It's, it,
Not that I can
yeah,
talk.
yeah. When I walked into the room, they knew that something was going to happen.
Yeah. Yes.
And
If there's a dress code that says I can't do it, it's a job I don't want.
if there's, I don't want it.
Yeah.
It's, like right now, I'm very elegantly attired in a Pinky in the Brain t-shirt
I see.
and pajamas.
Yeah.
So, doing what I
My
can.
PJs are black.
Yeah. Until they make something darker.
That's right. Until they find a color darker than darker than
Yeah.
black,
Right.
then I will sign on for that. So,
Yeah.
so how did you get into working on guitars?
The first guitar I got was pretty crappy, and my dad said, "Look, we're not going to spend a bunch of money on you until we're convinced that you're going to stick with this." And so they got me a junky guitar, and towards the end of that year, I got it for Christmas, and then towards the end of that year, we went into this store, Ziegler Music, which is long gone now, and my dad said to the guy behind the counter, "All right, we got him a junk guitar. He's sticking with it. So what can I get for X dollars?" And the guy pulled down an acoustic guitar from the wall, uh, which I still have. And then he took my first guitar, which was junk, and broke it in half over the edge of the counter and dropped it in the trash. And I just went, I might have wanted to keep that, but so I kept my second guitar. And the second guitar was an Epiphone, and it had problems and things would not work. And I just learned I'm handy. So I learned how to
Mhm.
fix it. And it just went from there. I would buy yard sale guitars and tear them all up and put them back together, and um, went nuts with, like making little Eddie Van Halen style guitars with tape
Mhm.
stripes.
All right.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated with taking anything and making it work better. And um, it just got them. Other people started bringing me their guitars and saying, "This doesn't work right." And I was hanging out at Ziegler Music so much that they put me to work. they taught me how to do restrings, and then eventually I started changing. At this era, people were changing the electronics, putting hotter pickups in the guitars, taking the original hardware off, putting brass hardware because some asshole thought that was a good idea.
Yeah.
And so I got to disassemble and reassemble all kinds of really cool, iconic guitars. And I started figuring out there are certain generalities that every guitar you do this, every guitar you do that, every Fender guitar has this, every Gibson guitar has that. And in the late 70s, when I was doing this, late 70s, early 80s, there were a lot of really cool companies like BC Rich and Hamer that had come out that were doing different things. And it was so cool to figure out how they went about what they did. And I just tore it up. And I'm ADD, and one of the things about being ADD is, and you are too, is you're cursed
full in.
Yeah, you're blessed with this insane amount of focus.
Yes, it's stuff that you're totally into. Yep.
And I'm also an addict. I'm an alcoholic, and so I have an addictive personality, and I'm ADD. So I learned everything I could. I bought every book I could on guitars. There was no internet back then, so like Guitar Player magazine. I remember literally sitting on the front porch waiting for the mailman on the third Thursday of the month because I knew that's when the Guitar Player magazine would arrive. Yeah. And I tore everything up, and I just worked at it and worked at it. At some point, when I was little, my dad fixed everything. And then at some point, my dad started handing me things to fix. And I just became the fixer guy. And the neighbors would ask me to fix their lawnmowers. And I'd work on people's bikes and whatever. And people, local musicians of respect would bring me their guitars at Ziegler's, and then they would bring them to my house. And my mom still has no idea that some of the people that she met at the front door and brought them down to the basement, some of these people are now really famous, because back then they were just local guys. Or
who are some of these?
Oh, I don't know, like some guys from Kicks, and well, some of the guys that got famous are not in the business anymore. But it was I worked on all kinds of stuff. And the one thing my grandfather said to me when I was a kid: don't tell me you can't do something until you prove you can't do it. And at 6 years old, I didn't really understand what he meant. And now I know exactly what he meant, that until you try something, you don't know if you're going to succeed. And I've discovered that there are certain things that I can do that I'm going to succeed at. And things that I'm not, if I approach it as if I'm going to succeed, I will succeed. But you really got to do your background. So
my thing is, what I'm always telling people is, you don't stop trying and doing it, because trying is you're kind of telling yourself that it's okay. I can live without this. If you can live without it, then live without it. But if it's important to you, don't try.
Yeah, and
do it if it's important to you. Not everybody's going to be a guitar player. Not everyone's going to be a musician. Not everybody, but if you want to, stop trying.
And if you're not going to do it to the best of your abilities, get the hell out of the way so somebody else can.
Yes.
My biggest guitar repairman / restorer is that people that don't know what they're doing make half-assed repairs on guitars, and they ruin them for eternity. And I'd say 25% of what I do is undoing the damage caused by another human being. And that's really frustrating when a really clean guitar that had a headstock break comes in and there's screws or they put carbon fiber rods in and drilled holes and whatever, and it didn't. And some of that stuff can be really, really, really frustrating. But you don't want to judge, because maybe it's the best the guy could do. But I just wish that people would just, if you can't do it, find somebody that can. For God's sake.
Yeah. Some people think they're better than what they are.
Yeah.
More than what they are. So
yeah. I'm
not one of those people especially when it comes to what you do.
Yeah, well, I can't play like, so it works out okay.
So we balance each other out.
Well, just like that gentle flight down in the Alps where you were
Right.
holding,
Yep.
making me so
If
secure.
I was a prick, you would have died. All right. So first time I ever came in contact with your name was in you were in a band called they might have just broken up, Plain Jane.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they had a band called Mary Jane and the Hurricanes, and they played all over. It was Keely and Jamie Groft,
Mm-hmm.
husband and wife team. Keely sang, played guitar and keyboards, and Jamie played bass and sang. And they had this band, Mary Jane and the Hurricanes, and they played all over. And a friend of mine was the guitar player, a guy named Jeff Rolker, who went on to form a band called Spies, and he played with Fly By Night for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would go out and see the band, and Jeff would, call me up and hand me his guitar every now and then. So I would play with those guys. And when they broke up, they came to me about playing guitar. And so we put a band together, an excellent drummer named Joe Redding. And we were trying to figure out what to call it. We couldn't really call it Mary Jane and the Hurricanes. And I said, well, we kind of cut it down to the basics. Why don't we just call it Plain Jane?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a really good band. And we did radio top 40, but the radio top 40 at the time was Aerosmith and Bon Jovi and Heart and, all kinds of really cool stuff. And that was a really cool band.
Yeah. I don't know if Keely even remembers me because this was like 1989. She was like, I was working at Stephen Nicholas Music teaching. And
Stephen Music.
Stephen Nicholas Music on Pottery Hill, New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Stone, with Al Cook.
Yeah. Al Cook. It was there's all Quentin Jones was in there. I forgot about Al, to be honest with you.
Yeah. We used to always stop in there on our way when we were playing somewhere in York. I would always stop in there and see what was on the wall. And
yeah,
it was a cool store.
Yeah. So she was one of my first students. Through her, I learned the song "Landslide" because I taught it to her. Because I remember, but also Jody Mummer.
Yeah,
you remember his name and I didn't. As I remember Jody, because
Jody was Jody the roadie, and he was the
Van
fifth
Halen
person.
man.
Yep, the fifth person in the van. Everywhere we went, Jody was there, and he'd set the stuff up and tear it down. And really hard worker. Hard worker.
Yeah. So when did you start getting into? Okay, so when did the sales thing come to you? Like you've been a repair guy at various stores, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then somewhere you jumped the shark and you went, okay, maybe I could sell some of these things that I'm finding.
I fell into it. What happened was Plain Jane, we got to a point where none of us liked each other. And so that band ended and I was done and I sold most of my stuff. And I said, you know what, I'm just not going to do this. And I concentrated on my job, which was as a hairstylist. And in 1988, I think 88 or 89, I quit the band. I moved from one apartment to another. I took a job at a different hair salon, a place called Classic Cuts. And I broke up with my girlfriend and I just completely reinvented myself. And started teaching a lot more. And I started doing studio work, playing on other people's stuff. And eventually then I was going to get my own hair salon. I was tired of working for other people because 50% of what I earned, I gave to the boss.
Mm-hmm.
And I had good clientele, really good, loyal clientele.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a location. I had product lines that I was going to use. Some of the staff of the salon I was working at was going to go with me. It was all there. And I went up to BCR Music in Lemoyne to buy some guitar strings. And Brian, who owned the store, said, I'm going to sell the store and just make BLB cabinets. And I thought about it and I thought, that this might be kind of cool. And so my then girlfriend, later wife, now ex-wife, and she's an accountant. So we sat down and talked about it and it made sense. So I I bought BCR instead of starting a hair salon, and I had BCR for 27 years, and through BCR, we took a little junk shop with 18 guitars and turned it into an internationally known business. Like I just sold the store to my manager, Jared, a few months ago, and when I sold it, it was a pretty big deal, and pretty cool store, internationally known, known for high quality repair, high quality guitars. Back in the mid 2000s, when the custom guitars, handmade guitars, $3,000 to $5,000 guitars were all the rage. We did Hamer, Robin, Gene Baker, GMP, James Tressart, and we did a lot of custom order guitars where people would come in, contact me, and we would design something that was not stock and then have manufacturers build them for them. And so we got known for that. And the repair stuff, as friends of mine became artists, they met other artists, and people would say, I need my guitar fixed. Well, I got this guy. And when John Bon Jovi,
okay, good. John Bon Jovi, what?
John Bon Jovi, his Les Paul broke, and somebody called me up and said, "Hey, we need to fix John's guitar," and I fixed that, and that opened up a whole bunch of doors. And I've worked for Aerosmith and Cheap Trick, and done repairs, and Walter Becker of Steely Dan.
A lot of these guys consider you a friend.
Yeah, well, I would hope so. When I get in with an artist, I don't really. The worst thing you can do is take somebody famous and stand there uncomfortably and just go, "So, do you remember when you
being a fanboy?"
Cool. Yeah. So what I try to do is, I'll ask them the technical questions, and then I'll walk away. And as a result, they grow to respect you. And then if they want to involve you in their life, that's their choice. And I've been very fortunate that a lot of people have. My buddy Night Bob got me in with the New York Dolls, and we played all over the world. And I took care of Sylvain and Sammy, the bass player, Sammy Yap. And when somebody that was an idol when you were a kid becomes a friend, it's really a blessing.
Oh yeah, obviously. And what did you do with Kiss? Did you do that?
They were Fran is my buddy Fran. Frantastic is Paul Stanley's guitar tech, and Fran's nuts. He's a hella guitar player, great guy, rides Harleys. And we became friends. And my friend Jim Service, who I met through Aerosmith and Cheap Trick, also works for Kiss. At the top level, there's roadies and techs are like gypsies, like carnies. And I did some repairs for Ted Nugent a bunch of years ago, and the guy that I was working with through Ted walked into my store about 2 months later, and I'm like, "Dude, what are you doing here? Ted's not on tour." He goes, "I'm out with Whitney Houston's band." And that's when I realized there's a certain number of guys that just go from tour and they're top level. And I've been absolutely blessed with having a lot of those guys be my friends. So Sarah and I will, somebody will be playing in Hershey, and Sarah and I we'll really go to see the crew guys and hang out, and talk to the band members. But a lot of times the crew guys are the guys that really matter. When I met Hogan, who started out as Pete Townshend's guitar tech and really invented the job of guitar tech. When I met him, I can only
imagine how hard his job was.
Oh, can you? Yeah, and but when I met him, I was more excited than meeting his boss, Pete Townsend. I mean, I was super excited to meet Alan because everything I had ever read about him, he seemed larger than life. And when I met him, he was just the sweetest, nicest old British guy. And he became a very dear friend. And when he died, I was really upset. But, the industry is all about connections. And if you don't give people a reason to not deal with you, they probably will deal with you again. The biggest mistake people make is they try to be more than what they are. I'm just a guitar. That's all I am. But if people hang out and sit backstage and tell road stories, I'm more than willing to do it, but
Mm-hmm.
that's not what.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. So VCR, you started it, you bought it from, it was a little shop.
It was a little shop.
Was it the same location as?
Well, it started on the East Shore in 1978, and then the original guy that had it, Mark, sold it to Dale, uh, Steve, and Mike. Mike has Mike's Music. Dale has Dale's Drum Shop. Those three guys ended up getting tired of each other and doing their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Brian bought the store and had it on the East Shore, and then he moved it to the West Shore to take advantage of all the business that Ray's Music was doing, and that was the smartest thing he did. And so it was up the street from Ray's, and every national, when they came into town, would go to Ray's, and started coming up the street because they heard about my place as well, because I had the vintage stuff.
Yeah.
I was going out and buying everything that was in the newspaper, and I was asking everybody. Somebody would come in with an old guitar, say, "What else you got? What amps do you have? Do you trade?" And I would grab up as much old stuff as I could, and then I would go through and restore it. So when it was hanging on the wall, you could take it down and walk right on stage.
Mm-hmm.
So then I ended up buying the building that BCR is in now in '97, and moving it over there on 3rd Street.
Yeah.
That was a good move because it was right off the highway. So now everybody that went to the other stores in town drove past me, and that worked out pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. So now you had lessons back then? Did you always?
Yes.
That was
always had. Yeah, because your business is no good if you're not creating new customers.
Yeah.
And one of our first teachers is now the guy that's in charge of the lesson program, Ryan Chilcote, who's just absolutely amazing. He is a brilliant guitar player. He does this crazy death metal shredding stuff, and then he'll pick up a nylon string and play Fernando Sor and make you cry.
Weep, yeah.
Sweet guy, terrific teacher. And we always worked hard on lessons, always had as many teachers as we could have, and take care of the students as best.
Getting into the community. The lesson part of it is another really good thing to get into the community.
I don't care what you do. If you're not creating new customers, the customers you have at some point will find a reason to go to another business or die.
Yeah.
And, so essentially, no matter how busy you are right now, that doesn't ensure that you're going to be that busy this time next year.
Yeah.
So constantly creating new business and contributing to the community, and becoming that place. When people are at football games and they're looking in the program and it says BCR and they're like, "Oh, I have a guitar." They buy guitars. I'm going to go there. Little things like that. They just ensure that you're going to stay in business and you're going to be successful. And you have to treat everybody like they're the only person in the world.
Yeah. Treat them decently, because if you treat them poorly, and you know this as well as I do, we can hold a grudge.
Musician.
Yeah.
Well, if you treat somebody
up.
Yeah. If you treat somebody really well, they might bring somebody with them next time. But if you treat somebody poorly, they're going to tell
50 of their closest friends.
Yeah. They're going to tell everybody they know that they had a bad experience.
Yeah.
And again, don't give anybody a reason to not do business with you.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So now you sold it to
Jared Cannon. Yeah.
Yep. And
he's good.
And he's been with you for a long time.
7-8 years. He knows the business in and out.
Okay.
During my divorce, he pretty much ran the business, and but he knows it, so he's going to do well.
This is wonderful. Question for you about Paul Reed Smith guitars.
Yeah.
What do you know?
What do you want to know? I've known since I was a little kid, and Paul's commitment to producing the finest quality guitars that he can come up with. Their guitars are jewels that play well. For years and years and years, I would see him at the NAMM show, and he'd say, "When are you going to sell my guitars?" And I'd say, "They're not me." And then a bunch of years ago, they hit on it, and they started making guitars that I really, really like. And so they came to us, and we started doing it. And now BCR is a very prominent PRS dealer, and doing Wood Library and and private stock and whatever. And they would make experimental guitars that were off the sheet, and they would provide them to us so we could sell some guitars that nobody else had.
Mhm.
And a great company, and they back their products really, really well.
Mhm.
I've had several. I have
Go
will
ahead.
never leave.
Say,
I
say-
have a David Grissom, a DGT that will never leave my hands. It's just a magical guitar.
Mhm. So he would take from what I know, he was a student like yourself of all, like the
Yeah.
Les Paul, the Telly,
Yep.
all the great guitars. He was a student of it, and he's like, okay, what do these things do best? And he would take the classic stuff and combine them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, he did a thing, because at the time that PRS came about 35 years ago, Gibson built what they built. Fender built what they built. Both companies were so big they didn't give a crap, and they haven't changed. They're still huge, and they don't care about the individual.
Mhm.
All listened to players, and he would build guitars for Ted Nugent or Howie Leese or whatever, and Carlos Santana, and then they would tell him what they were observing with the guitar, what worked, what didn't, and
Mhm.
he's one of the smartest people you'll ever meet. And so he made guitars that, if you always played Les Pauls, you could play a PRS. If you always played Telecasters, you could play a PRS,
Mhm.
because he split the middle between all these different,
Yeah.
very different platforms.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a genius. He's absolutely a genius. And now PRS is the third largest guitar manufacturer in the world.
Who's the first?
American guitar manufacturer in the world.
Who's first and second?
Gibson and Fender.
Okay, so what's Gibson doing now?
Making mistakes.
Okay. That's coming from you as you're like guitar pouring all your Gibsons and
All my Gibsons are old, brother.
yeah, right. No, I know. Okay.
Yeah, then I do have a 2007 a historic black Les Paul from 2007, but everything else I have, the newest one next to that is a 1985 that I got from Billy Duffy, and then everything else is 1950s or
Really?
earlier.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Not earlier than 50s, right?
Well, I got a couple 1930s acoustics.
Okay, so they're not Les Pauls.
Well, the electric came about in the 50s.
Huh?
But I just lied. I have a custom shop, Joe Perry.
Okay.
That's, I believe, from 2018. So I'm sorry. I just think 50s.
There's so many guitars. That's not a lie. Just
I need. Hey, I don't smoke. I don't drink.
Yeah.
Guitars.
Yeah, that's all right. It's all right. It's an all right addiction. So first of all, you're now doing work in your own home.
Yes. Yeah.
You're repairing. Are you also building your own?
Yes, I am.
Okay, tell us about that.
Well, what I do is I do commissions. I have a Facebook, Greg Platzer Guitars, which I'm currently locked out of. I have no idea why. And I have an Instagram, Greg Platzer Guitars, and you can see some of the stuff that I do on those. But what I'll do is somebody will come to me and they'll say, I really like an old Les Paul, but I don't like this about it. I don't like the heel, or I don't like the neck shape, or it's too heavy, or whatever. And then what I'll do is I'll build them their version of what it is. And but I don't build anything with somebody else's headstock. Like, people come to me and they're like, can you build me a 1959 Les Paul? And I say,
Yeah.
I could do a pretty good replica, but I'm not going to. Walter Becker contacted me. I had built my version of a 1954 Les Paul Gold Top, and I had just made any old headstock on it. Because I was just going to use it as a stage guitar. So I shaped the neck to fit my hand, did the pickups up the way I wanted, everything about it, the top carve, everything was the way I wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted it, wanted to buy some guitars from me. So I sent that up, and he sent me money. And I said, what is it about this guitar that's so special to you? And he said, you built it for yourself. So the way you did the neck, the way you blended the neck into the body, he said, when the craftsman does it to his spec, that makes it special. And he said, that's what guitar, and he played it on the song Peg for the rest of his life, pretty much. And a funny story: soon after he bought it, Jared and I went up to. They were playing at Steel Stacks in Bethlehem, and so we went backstage and we went and looked at the guitar rig, and my gold top wasn't there. So we were sitting at catering, and I'm like, where's the gold top you just bought from me? He said, we didn't bring it because we were worried you would steal it back. And so I was like, well, thanks a lot. And so the next gig was in Baltimore, and he played it at soundcheck, and then he kept it on during all of the media. So we're sitting out there watching, like, you know, all the media, they're taking pictures and the whole band lines up and everything. And he's got my gold top on to try to make me feel better because he didn't bring it to the Bethlehem gig. And that's the kind of guy Becker was. And I've been absolutely blessed to have people like Walter Becker in my life. It's not that I'm great, it's that they are great and that they chose.
They saw value in you that you might not even fully saw in yourself.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm down on me than you are. But you know, this is almost a fairy tale now, because I get up and I have breakfast, and then I walk downstairs and I go to work. It's fantastic.
This is wonderful. Good for you. Now I'm going to. You're in Mechanicsburg.
Yes, sir.
I would love for you to work on my Paul Reed Smith.
I would love to do it.
Okay. The thing doesn't stay in tune.
It will.
I've had it. I've had it for since the mid '90s, and it's a wonderful guitar. It just needs to stay in tune.
We will take care of that.
You know how to give another 25 years to it for me.
Absolutely, because that guitar is good. It's just there's little details, and there's like little secret handshake things, because we've got a guitar with a tremolo bridge and locking tuners, and unless you're using a Floyd Rose, no tremolo will stay perfectly in tune. But there's little things you can learn to do. And as the owner of the guitar, like how you put the strings on, you don't want to have a whole bunch of winds around the tuning machine, but all that string has to stretch and shrink and stretch and shrink. You know, there's little things you can do, and each one of those little things might only be a 5% improvement. But if there's 10 little things, that's a 50% improvement over what you're starting.
Yes. Well, thank you, Greg. And so, what is next for you?
Being able to scratch my nose with my right fingers,
and to make coffee with your right hand, or is it your left?
Yeah, to get back in the saddle. What's next is I've got a. I'm still setting up the new business. You know, I've got to buy software. I've been doing everything on paper, and I did everything on paper for many years, so I'm used to that. But it'll be nice to punch everything into a computer. The technology is so good nowadays. It's just a matter of choosing which technology you want to use.
And
I'm gonna do another record, and I have some friends that are gonna play on it, and I'm looking forward to.
What about this dirty funk thing you got going on?
Oh yeah. Well, I have a rock band, Grumpy. I have a Beatles tribute band called the Resistors, and now Amy Simpson from the band Blitz-Dinette and myself and Butch Barber, who played with George Clinton.
Was he the Funky Foot?
Yeah, and the bass player whose name just I'm so embarrassed. I just lost his name. Begins with a B, but anyway, Bernard. What we're gonna do is put a band together to do like Rufus with Chaka Khan and Sly, Emily Stone, and Mother's Finest, which is one of the greatest bands that nobody ever gave a damn about. Joe Cocker, and just, you know, big fat dirty funk. You know,
that is wonderful.
I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be a lot.
Yeah. Keep us all in the loop on that. That is
Amy Simpson's just one of the best singers I've ever.
Of course.
She's
my Ella Fitzgerald.
Yeah, mine too.
She's my Ella Fitzgerald. It's like she's got the funk, she's got the jazz, she's got lots of stuff.
Yeah,
lots of good stuff from Amy.
You know, you want to surround yourself with musicians that are brave, musicians that are willing to get comfort zone and
Yeah.
try something different. And if you reach out, like if you always did something a certain way, like if you always played 12 bar blues
Mhm.
and your career is you're going to play, blues in A for the rest of your life, hey, God bless you. But if you decide to stretch it out from that, you might actually pull something in that makes you so different that people will notice you. So
Absolutely.
different things. You don't have to, like, you can try something and it doesn't work and you can walk away from it. That's what you tried, but you will always learn. You learn from mistakes and you learn
Yeah.
from things.
Well, like you're the rock guy pulling in some Tony Maiden guitar riffs and comping, and because you have the rock background, you're going to make it sound different than anyone else. Because
Yeah,
your brand of rock is different than my brand of rock is different than so I've always said that it's all about the mix.
yeah.
Okay, if you
Well,
only have one person you're stealing from, then your stuff is not that dense.
you're a tribute act.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the greatest guitar players that heavily influenced me, and nobody talks about him, is a guy named Terry Kath from the band
Oh yeah.
Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
That guy would do like horn stabs, even though
Mm-hmm.
there was would do horn stabs. His chord voicings, Jan Ackerman from
Focus.
Focus, another guy that
Focus.
it wasn't always just root 5 chords,
Mhm.
like there's a lot of fun in Judas Priest, but every Judas Priest record sounds like every other one. But when you find these guys that are pushing it, that are playing things that are traditionally not guitar things,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot to be learned from that. And you said something earlier about how you had to learn Landslide to teach Keeley. I had all these different students that wanted to learn all these different kinds of music, and they would come in and they would say, "Well, I want to learn how to do this." Well, then I would have to go learn how to do that so that I could teach them. And my repertoire expanded exponentially when I was teaching.
Yeah.
I got turned kinds of bands I never would have found out.
And honestly, I'll say it's even worse now or better now, depending on your point of view, because the world is so much smaller because of streaming.
Yeah.
Because when you did it, you taught what in the early '90s, late '80s?
80s and early 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like if I had 15 students, 10 of them wanted to learn every Rosetta Thorn.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not the case anymore. No,
Yeah.
every one of them will pull something I never heard of before, and I've been on this planet for 29 years or so.
Yeah. 29
And
plus.
yes, plus. But yeah. All right, Greg, we're gonna get going, but thanks so much, and this is wonderful, and I wish you all the success and all the best, and we'll exchange. I gotta get my guitar to you, and
I
I'm
look forward
excited
to
for
taking
that. I'm excited for that because yeah.
so much for considering me somebody worth talking to. I
Oh,
really
of course, of course. Yes, and thanks for
and
making the time.
thanks for saving my life in the Alps.
That's
That was
true.
really
Well, I will not do that again because I'm not parachuting anymore.
it's
And screw
jumping.
parasailing too. That's another danger thing that I only did once and I will never do it again. But that's another story for another episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
All righty. See you then.